Hello and welcome to EvilGinger Miniatures, where I am combining doing a EvilGinger Miniatures Tuesday video with a test of seeing what it's like to stream, well, to record stuff that I'm working on. These are some models that I got from May 40, and they came in the goodie bag for I got from Crisis, and they are, I believe, as yet unreleased engineers, German paratroop engineers with the equipment they use to bust up urban Emil. So the glider troops, effectively. They're the glider rather than the parachute deployed ones. Hoping that there will be some Belgians in the offing, so that we can actually have some people to do the shooting at these fine fellows. But anyway, this is partly a test for videoing this way, and it's also a bit of an instruction for my lovely friend at Orchid Panda Miniatures, who has never ever worked on any metal miniatures, and is a little bit concerned that they are hard compared with the plastic ones. They are different, but I'll say not hard. But I speak of someone who cut his teeth on scraping flash off minifigs back in the day. Right, we have these, which are fairly new sculpts and from fresh molds, so you're probably not going to see much of the May 40. Excellent miniatures. So in here we have, what is it, 6 figures for an engineering team. There, none of them are lying down, so I'm going to be using the standard Renedra bases that I've been using for the rest of my Dutch and my test Fallschirmjägers. And as it would happen, there's 5 on here, and I have to take one off the other. I bulk buy these. They're somewhat more expensive than the pennies that I used to use, but nobody's going to get fussed about them, and as this is the standard that I will be doing the way I'll be doing the ones for Etsy, though I might be actually using the slightly countersunk bases that either Warlord or Board Games Atlantic now do for the same purpose. So these are just the same glasses, reading glasses with flip up magnifiers there, and this is how I will see the. Now looking over the figure, this guy is placing a charge. It's a shaped charge. I'm trying to get my hand out of the way of the thing. And so you have a look over him for flash. Flash is actually quite rare, but you'll see mould lines, and they're normally, I suspect in this one, the mould split across the figure like that. There isn't a mould line here, but you would gently break it up and sort of disperse it. You can't always get rid of every last bit of it, but you make sure that it's not visible and it doesn't show up on the figure. Sometimes they don't show up until after you've varnished, until after you've primed them, so you have to go back and redo that. There is a little bit of a mark on the base, so to make it nice and level, I will get a file and just file that flat. These files, incidentally, need to be cleaned, and ideally I would be using a half round or a flat warding file, but as always with my tools, the ones I want to use are never to hand. So I grabbed a handful of the square ones. They also work. I believe this one needs opening. I've got that it's plastic glue. Anyway, this one needs opening apparently because I cannot find the full one. Where is a knife? Again, standard snap it blade knife. Just cut that off so we can get out the glue. So just stick it to the base with a block of glue, make sure it's within the boundaries of the base. Like that. And you just go through the other figures. Just check them over for any flash along the mould line. And then just give the base a little bit smooth. As I say, these are really nice new casts from new moulds. So a good caster and a fresh set of moulds and you'll not have a problem at all with them. Apart from the inevitable little bit on the bottom, but this is very, very slight. And another engineer. Just checking them over. Can't see any flash along the seams. So again, and a little drop of that. Just straighten the tip of that rifle while I'm doing it. So it's not quite. Just check them all over. Another engineer. Again, very little flash on them at all, except this tiny little bit at the bottom of the base, which is pretty much unavoidable because that's where the mould fills from. And it's common with the spun moulds, and it's common with the older gravity moulds where you just poured metal in the top and the weight and the metal flowed through. So I've got 4 of those done now. Again, check this guy over for flash, and there isn't any. So just a quick application of the file to flatten the base out so it's nice and level. A bit of fluff. And let it go off. It's new super glue, so it's again with these bases, there's a rough side which is down because it gives a bit of grip for the figure when it's standing on terrain, and a smooth side which is the one that you glue the model to. Again, this guy, make sure the rifle's straight and just file the bases off. Now this is a test video, so I'm going to be looking at it afterwards and seeing how it works. But they're all stuck down. It being fresh super glue, they won't take that long. Now, the next stage is to use some milliput to blend in the bases. The reason you do it now, well, I'm doing it now, is because the best way to kill a brush is to get super glue in it. If it's got super glue in, it's dead almost immediately. And there is, as far as I know, no way of rescuing it. Just found the super glue. Where did I put the milliput that I was going to be using? But I put milliput around the base so that it covers over the wet super glue. Bear in mind, where did I put all of the milliput? See, this comes of not being organised and being half asleep this morning and not grabbing anything. So we're going to possibly, what I would do then with these is I would put the milliput round. If I can see milliput from here, I'll do that, and then I was intending to primer them because that's the next stage of primer. Now there's milliput behind me. You have some to hand. Just standard green grey milliput. Doesn't have to be expensive for this sort of thing, and you're not doing sculpting. Anyway, green stuff and other things like beast putty are better for sculpting. Not that I'm a sculptor. So we just peel a lump out of this. Now, if this stuff gets hard, which it will do if it's been left a while, it hasn't gone off, but it just gets hard to work. So you work it before you mix it quite vigorously, and it will soften up again. I'm not sure what causes the temporary hardening, but it's a thing. And that should be enough because we only need a little fillet around that. That's the hardener, and that's the softener. And I have just realised that I haven't done the lights properly on this, and then you want about the same size as the other one. So you've got those two, so they're roughly the same size. Then you mix the two together and keep working them and kneading them. Now, if this looks a little bit washed out, it's because I didn't set the lights up properly. I should have turned off the main light, which is what I've got on, and turned on the overhead arch light and one of the corner uplighters, but it didn't. So this is what you're getting. This is why my hands look quite as white as they do. But in my defence, I haven't had enough coffee today. Very definitely not enough caffeine of any sort. I'm considering a 48-hour stream or a 24-hour stream. Now, I could wait for the milliput to go off, for the glue to go off, but milliput and putty are not. And I just want to make sure all the putty is covered up. Glue is covered, so that when I get a paintbrush to these to put some primer on them, I won't be throwing away an expensive paintbrush. Because whilst the ones I use are not hideously expensive, if you're using a Winsor & Newton and you get a bit of super glue in it, you have a dead £20 or £30 brush, and nobody wants that. This is especially a problem if you've got less than fresh super glue, where it takes longer to go off than you think it should, and first thing you know about it having not gone off adequately is that you have a dead brush. Because it will go off more or less instantly in a brush, and you'll get a not very good sculpting tool out of it, or texturing tool, not a brush. The other reason for doing this is, and these are effectively my figures, is because I got back from the beta site on Monday, and I have been absolutely shattered, and I want to make sure I get back to speed with actually doing some modelling stuff on figures that are mine, and therefore I'm not going to get stressed about them being ruined by my doing it while I'm half asleep. I don't think I'm half asleep at the moment, but it's always wise to use something a little bit, that not that doesn't matter, but wouldn't be an utter disaster like somebody's unique figures that I'm doing for a commission. This is the other reason I'm stopping doing commission painting, really, because a lot of the stuff that people send to me or were sending to me was out of production and stuff like that, and if I'd never seen it before, it was a learning experience for me. And when my anxiety was getting really bad, it was a hell of an anxiety inducing experience. Now, as typically, I've done one of two things. I have got too much or too little. You either get too much or too little of this. I'm going to probably have to mix a little bit more of this and mould it into bricks. because I have, as you can see, one base still to do. So again, a little bit of this, work it so it softens. And hopefully after I've recorded this, I will have proved positive that I am with it enough to risk doing the commission, and then start getting on with it. You mix this stuff until it starts feeling a bit warm in your hand, and that usually means it's actually the chemical reaction between the two parts is working. It's a heat generating, which I remember from my chemistry as being exothermic, and once it starts getting a little warm in your hands, it won't get hot, won't get unpleasantly hot, but you'll feel the warmth coming off the. This one is going to be fiddly because there is detail on the edge of the base rather than it just being the edge of a base. And I really don't want to cover up that very, very nice shaped charge that's on the bottom. So this one I might have to leave from priming because there is glue on top of the base, which I don't want to get in my brushes. I've repeatedly said in this video, because they're just dead. And I'm hard enough on my brushes as it is. See, improvised sculpting tool. Look it and just work round the detail. Hopefully scrape some of the glue off. Yeah. So there. We have a little bit of brick to go in the massive brick collection, which should be somewhere over there on the laptop. Now, that will take a couple of hours to go off, but if I'm careful, I can paint it even though it hasn't gone off. Mainly I'm being careful about not being brush into the glue that might be on the bases. So let's have a look for a brush. That's a fairly big one. So again, this is mostly a cheapo artist one being used for doing scenery. This is a war basis size 1, and I will go and have a great round look for some white primer, which is in my stock behind me. But I have not. Oh, what not? It's not white, that's misty grey. Oh, we're going to have grey primer, because that's the one I laid my hand on. So we're going to just use this as this is Reaper grey primer. It's an extremely good metal primer, all the Reaper primers are. I find the Armoured Painter brush on primer doesn't tend to stick quite so well to, you have to put it on thicker. Whereas this one, you can put on very thin and it'll still work, because the point with the primer is you want just enough to get the paint to stick properly. This is Tamiya Thinners, which is an alcohol based thinner, and is ideal for thinning down pretty much most acrylic paints, though it's actually designed for the Tamiya ones. Be a bit careful with it because it is isopropyl alcohol, so you don't really want to consume large quantities of it. You just work the primer in to all the detail with a brush, and this is the bit where you want to be careful of glue, because that will be a nice brush. Wall bases aren't the most expensive brushes in the world, but they are pretty much indestructible. Well, they resist my damage quite well. And again, just put a thin coat of primer over everything. More paint. Nothing terribly complicated about the technique, it's just a question of putting a decent coat on here and then working the paint into the figure. Same as I was doing on the one-to-one scale modelling at the weekend, where I was working paint into detail on walls. This is much more relaxing than doing that under the supervision of the boss, who will pick out all of your faults in the same way a digital camera will, and then we'll spend an hour moaning about them, which a digital camera won't. I'm going to do him last. I'm going to do the ones that are likely to have glue around them last, just to give it the most chance possible to dry off. Yeah, should do that. Should have a water pot, but I'm a bit chary about having a water pot all around around computers, so I haven't got one, or I have to mix it with coffee. So let's have a look around and see if this one's gone off enough. I'll look around to see if this one's gone off enough. And get me a better position, change my position a little bit. Like that, and the brush is survived. Of course, acrylic paint is non-toxic, otherwise I would be in trouble. It's not the old artist oils of old. And there we have, get them in the camera, the 6 figures which I am going to let dry, because the next stage of doing them is once they're dry is I just grey primer the rest of the base, and I will be taking a photograph of this with the camera. Make sure I've got any crap on the camera. Right, so that's something that's don't need to do much with. And that's the thumbnail. So I hope you enjoyed that and my little test paint and learned a bit from it. As I say, metal figures, if you've never done them, are nothing to be frightened of. They are, if anything, easier than plastic figures, as they generally require very little or no assembly. But as these were all one-piece castings, as I say, plastic aren't a problem either, but these will have a bit more heft than an equivalent plastic figure, which is why I was tending to base them on coins, not just because I'm a cheapskate and coins are the cheapest washers you can get hold of. Anyway, I think that's about it for now. I'm going to call it and make sure the sound is recorded on this one, because I can't do this one again, unlike my normal ones. So goodbye and take care, everyone. Bye.